Well, there's an interesting thing, and some people are very curious about it. By the time I grabbed the camera, they'd all come out from the sharp, nasty bits. I'm hoping they're going to fix it and make it beautiful for me. But what is it? In general terms, we know what it is. You know, it's a cultivator or a rotavator, call it what you will. And it's a big chunky one, and I can assure you it's heavy. I discovered this. Two of us put it in the car. I got it out on my own, and yeah, I can lift it, but it's not the easiest of things to lift. But what an absolute gem that is. I think it's missing a few bits. I think, yeah, maybe it would have some sort of wheel on the front. I don't know. And, well, it tells us that it's an Agria Minicot. And the motor, you don't have to be a fantastic engineer to recognise straight away that that's a two-stroke. And it's got something interesting on this. You know, all the bits you'd expect. Carburettor and pull starter and things like that. And a big jobby for undoing so you can swing the handles round if you're going to stick it in the back of a Renault Kangoo. But look at this. It's got an auxiliary power takeoff. For lighting coils or something. I suppose you can run this at night. Don't think you'd be popular, because it's not the quietest of machines. And I suspect there's a few of you want to see if it actually runs. Yeah, we had a discussion with the fuel cock. We're not sure whether that's on or whether that's on. I sort of fancy that's on. And it's I said it's a two-stroke. It takes premix. Let's see what happens if we pull the string. Well, there's something strange about this machine. Before we put it in the car, every time you pulled the string, it started. And the gentleman that had it was very proud of that, and he said, "It's old," he said, "but it always starts," he said. And just to make a point, he stopped it and started it and stopped it and started it, and it's got quite an impressive bark on it. And we had a lengthy discussion about what sort of juice goes in it. He made a big point of telling me that it's premix, well, he said playmix, but we know what we're talking about, two-stroke stuff. It hasn't got a separate oil tank, so you mix your juice and put it in. And he asked me if I know about two-stroke motors, and I, well, yes. He said, you know, exactly the same as a mobilette. So I said 25 to 1, and he said, maybe, he said. Well, his wife had her mobile phone with her, and she checked, and yeah, 25 to 1 in a mobilette, apparently. Or was that an aerial leader? Anyway, that was the discussion we had. Of course, what we should have done, instead of mucking about like that, we should have simply read the cap on the petrol tank. He speaks French, I speak English, so of course this appears to be in German. And I assume that Mischung 20 to 1 is the ratio that you put SAE 40 oil in with your juice. Yeah, we could have saved ourselves a lot of trouble if we'd simply looked at that. But there was the funny thing. It started, it ran. It ran beautifully. He even chewed up his front garden for a brief moment to demonstrate that not only does the motor run, but the whole machine works. So we smiled and shook hands and did all of those sorts of things that you do, and we undid this handle and we swung that handle round. It actually did that while we was there, and tighten that back up. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. We know these things. And he and I huffed and puffed a bit and threw it in the back of the car, and I then drove gingerly home and lifted it out of the car and swung the handlebars back where they should be, like that, ish, somewhere there, and tightened it back up again. Look at that, it all works, and if you give it a bit of persuasion so it doesn't come undone while you're working your way between the rows of potatoes. And yeah, then it, as you have now seen, simply refused to start. Now, I've had the spark plug out. It was very, very oily. Also, I don't think that the washer on the spark plug is in its first flush of youth. However, it was giving nice big fat sparks. I found out the old-fashioned way that you should use insulated pliers when you hold the spark plug against the cylinder head to test it. You know, that jolt in the elbow that you get sometimes. And to test the petrol pump, I whipped the top off the carburettor. Very, very, you know, we know how these things work. And it's got what an Englishman will call a tickler on it, or a primer if you prefer. And I made sure we were getting juice through it, which we were. But as you saw, it just refused to start. What it did do twice was an absolutely wonderful backfire. And one of my neighbours stuck her head out of the window and asked me if I was all right, and she thought I'd been shooting a gun. She laughed. Now, the only difference between this morning and this afternoon is this has been on a car journey. So, I think and this is just thinking aloud, I think that in shaking it about in the back of the car and humping it in and humping it out, we've probably disturbed a lot of crud in that fuel tank, because this machine has been standing for a long time without being disturbed. And I've just got a feeling that before I get it to backfire again, I probably should have the carburettor off and clean it. And I probably should drain the tank and clean that. And at the end of the day, this is... Do you know, I was going to say it's a toy. No, it's not. It's a very important piece of agricultural equipment which is going to make me a rich farmer. Yeah, it's a toy. You know, I've got one that works. So I think we're not going to try to start it again until I've had the carburettor off it and cleaned it, put a new spark plug with a new washer in. And why I say that, when I took the plug out, it was obvious that it had been blowing past the washer. And in my dim distant youth, when people were trying to teach me things, something tells me that when you've finger tightened and tightened it a quarter, the squidgy washers that go between the plug and the cylinder head have a limited lifespan, because every time you tighten it a quarter, you're squashing it a bit more. So I'm going to put this away in the barn and not going to try and start it again, because I really don't want the neighbours calling the gendarmerie to see who's shooting at who. And we'll concentrate on the things we're supposed to be doing today. And what I should be doing today is sorting out this to go on the lawnmower at the Abbey. And I'm chuffed to bits with this because it's the complete jobby, and it fits exactly the same as the old one, but it's a different, you know, it's a modern plastic carburettor with bronze jets in it, and you know, this is the new replacement for the old job, so this shouldn't suffer in the same way with the sort of damage that modern ethanol juices do to things. So I'm rather hopeful that if I clean some of the crud off of that, I'm hopeful that one day in the week I can throw that on the sister's lawnmower and we can cut grass with it again, which will be good. Yeah, happy with that. Yeah, made me a liar, didn't it?